Welcome to a deep dive into Adi Shankara's Bhaja Govindam,
You can think of it as a philosophical wake-up call.
set to music.
Yeah, exactly.
It's technically classified as a devotional song,
That's stopped for him.
but it's so much more than that.
Oh, absolutely. This is a powerful guide to understanding reality and the path to liberation.
And it all started with a pretty interesting observation, right?
Yeah. The story goes that Śaṅkara encountered a scholar in Benares who was completely absorbed in just memorizing grammar rules.
Uh-huh.
And it really made him step back and think, all this worldly knowledge, however impressive, isn't going to provide any comfort when faced with death.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the spark that ignited Bhaja Govindam.
I love that.
It's this reminder that we need something more, something eternal to truly ground us.
Yeah. It's like he's saying, hey, life's too short to get hung up on the small stuff.
Exactly.
And speaking of not sweating the small stuff,
Yeah.
let's talk about the big picture guy himself,
Yeah.
Adi Shankara. This was a pivotal figure in Hinduism, someone who brought the tradition back to life at a time when it was facing serious challenges from Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't just a brilliant philosopher, he was also a dynamic teacher and a master organizer.
Yeah.
Setting up institutions, breathing new life into temples.
His impact is still felt today.
For sure.
And to really grasp his genius, we need to dive into the core message of Bhaja Govindam.
Oh.
And it's all about this idea of seeking Govinda, which represents the divine, the ultimate
Yes.
truth.
Mhm.
And right from the first verse, Śaṅkara doesn't mince words. He tells us straight up, seek Govinda, seek Govinda, seek Govinda, O fool.
Whoa.
When the appointed time comes, death, grammar rules, surely will not save you.
It's such a reality check, isn't it?
It is.
It's like he's shaking us by the shoulders saying, wake up. All this stuff you're chasing after, the money, the fame, the knowledge, it all fades away in the end. Focus on what truly matters.
Yeah, it's a call to shift our priorities from those external pursuits to internal transformation. And that's where the concept of vichana comes in.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So think of it as this state of mind that's free from that constant craving and attachment that can drive us crazy.
Oh, yeah.
We get stuck thinking, if I just had that new car, that promotion, that perfect relationship, then I'll finally be happy.
And I'll have made it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Śaṅkara is saying no true contentment comes from within, not from accumulating more and more stuff.
It's about more than just like renouncing all your possessions and living like a hermit.
Right. It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about detaching yourself from that insatiable thirst for more, 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 more.
Yes.
And finding joy in what you already have.
Yes.
The simple things.
The present moment.
Yeah, exactly.
This is such a radical idea.
It is.
Especially in today's world,
Yeah.
where we're bombarded with messages telling us we need to buy this, achieve that, look like this to be happy.
Absolutely. And this idea of looking beyond the surface, of seeing through illusions, is central to the next verse. Śaṅkara tells us, seeing the full bosom of young maidens and their navel, do not fall a prey to maddening delusion.
Oh, wow.
This is but a modification of flesh and fat. Think well thus in your mind, again and again.
Let's be real. We've all been there, captivated by someone's physical beauty.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sure.
But Shankar is reminding us that this kind of attraction, it's fleeting.
Yeah.
It's based on external appearances, which are constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
And we often project our own desires and fantasies onto others, creating this illusion of perfection that doesn't actually exist.
Exactly. And to counter this tendency, he offers this practical technique called pratipaksha bhavana.
Okay.
And it's about consciously replacing those negative or obsessive thoughts with their opposite.
Interesting.
So if you find yourself getting carried away by someone's looks,
Uh-huh.
remind yourself that those are just temporary, superficial qualities.
Okay.
Shift your focus to their inner qualities, their kindness, their intelligence, their sense of humor.
So it's like training your mind to see beyond the superficial, to appreciate the deeper, more enduring aspects of a person and of life itself.
Exactly.
And speaking of appreciating the preciousness of life, the next verse hits us with this powerful analogy.
Yeah.
Shankar says, the water drop playing on a lotus petal has an extremely uncertain existence. So also is life ever unstable. Understand, the very world is consumed by disease and conceit and is riddled with pangs.
I love that image.
It's so powerful.
The water droplet teetering on the edge of the lotus petal, it captures the fragility and impermanence of life perfectly.
It really does.
You know, one minute we're here, the next we could be gone. And yet we often go about our days as if we have all the time in the world. We get caught up in our worries, our ambitions, our dramas, forgetting that it could all disappear in an instant.
It's a sobering reminder to savor every moment.
Yes.
To appreciate the people in our lives, to live with a sense of purpose and gratitude.
And this analogy also has a deeper, more metaphysical meaning within Vedanta. It relates to the idea of the individual soul, or Atman, residing within the infinite consciousness, or Brahman, just as the water droplet eventually merges back into the ocean, our individual souls ultimately return to their source.
So it's not just about recognizing our own mortality, but also about understanding our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
Something eternal and unchanging.
Exactly. And in the next few verses, Śaṅkara dives deeper into this idea of detachment. Exploring the temporary nature of all those things we tend to cling to for security and happiness.
Like what?
Like family wealth and social status.
Ah, yeah. All those things we identify with, we invest in, sometimes even base our self-worth on.
Exactly. But he reminds us that these attachments are ultimately fleeting.
They can change in an instant.
Yeah, just like that water droplet on the lotus petal.
Right.
They can't provide us with lasting happiness or fulfillment.
And clinging to them only creates suffering when they inevitably change or disappear.
Exactly.
This is a tough truth to swallow, though.
It is.
Especially in a culture that often equates success with material possessions and social status.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know, Śaṅkara isn't advocating for a life of poverty or isolation.
Right.
He's simply pointing us towards a deeper, more enduring source of happiness.
Okay.
One that comes from within, from connecting with our true nature.
From seeking Govinda.
Yes.
And that's where the real journey begins, the path to liberation. But we'll have to save that exploration for the next part of our deep dive.
So we've talked about how clinging to external things, like, they're not going to bring us lasting happiness.
Right.
But what does? What is this path to liberation that Śaṅkara keeps talking about?
Well, it all starts with kind of turning inward. You know?
Okay.
It's about recognizing that true happiness and freedom, they aren't found in the outside world, but within ourselves.
Okay.
So in verses 8 through 10, Śaṅkara kind of introduces us to this ladder of spiritual progress.
Okay.
The steps we can take to move from delusion to liberation.
I like that.
Yeah. And the first step is quieting the mind.
Makes sense.
Think about it, right? Our minds are constantly bombarded with stimuli.
Oh, yeah.
Sights, sounds, thoughts, worries.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And this constant mental chatter, it keeps us from seeing things clearly and experiencing true peace.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not about becoming emotionless or completely shutting ourselves off from the world.
Right.
It's more about learning to detach from those external distractions so we can connect with the stillness and peace within.
Precisely. And as we cultivate this inner stillness, we begin to perceive the true nature of reality more clearly.
Right.
We begin to understand that we are not our thoughts or emotions, but something much greater.
Right.
Something eternal and unchanging.
And this leads to the concept of jivanmukta,
Yeah.
a liberated being who experiences freedom while still living in the world.
It's like reaching a state of inner peace and contentment that's not dependent on external circumstances.
It's not about what's happening around you. It's about what's happening inside you.
Exactly. But as with any journey, you know, there are potential pitfalls along this path to liberation.
And of course.
Right. And in verses 11 through 16, Śaṅkara highlights some of the biggest obstacles we might encounter.
Like what?
Well, he specifically warns against pride, attachment, and desire, even when they're disguised as spiritual pursuits.
Oh, that's tricky.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like thinking, oh, I'm more spiritual than other people because I meditate every day or because I follow all the rules.
I've given up all my possessions.
Exactly. I'm giving up all my possessions. But true renunciation, it's not about outward appearances. It's about inner transformation.
Right. It's about what's going on the inside.
Exactly. And he illustrates this point with the example of a wandering monk who practices extreme asceticism.
Okay.
You know, giving up all worldly comforts and pleasures. But despite all of his efforts, he's still plagued by desires.
Oh, wow.
He's attached to the idea of being a renunciate,
Okay.
to the image of himself as this holy man.
Interesting.
And that attachment,
Yeah.
that clinging to the ego, that's what keeps him trapped in suffering.
So it's a reminder that we can be attached to anything.
Yeah.
Material possessions, relationships, ideas,
Even spiritual practices.
even spiritual practices.
Yeah.
Wow. So true freedom comes from letting go of all attachments.
Yeah.
From recognizing that true happiness and fulfillment, they come from within,
Exactly.
not from anything external.
Not from anything outside.
And that brings us to verses 17 through 19,
Okay.
where Śaṅkara contrasts this idea of clinging to external validation
Right.
with the transformative power of genuine detachment.
Or vairagya.
Vairagya.
Okay.
Yeah. So he paints these two contrasting portraits.
Okay.
One is this hypocrite who performs religious rituals and practices austerities just for show-seek praise and recognition from others. And the other is a true renunciate who has let go of all attachments
Okay.
and finds joy and inner contentment.
I like that.
Yeah, and the key difference here.
Yeah, what is it? Is that the true renunciate isn't seeking anything from the outside world. Their happiness comes from within, from a deep understanding of their true nature.
It's not about what other people think.
No, they're not trying to impress anyone or prove anything. They're simply living in alignment with their truth.
That's beautiful.
It's a beautiful image of what true liberation looks like.
Yeah.
The state of inner peace and freedom that radiates outwards and inspires others by its very presence.
I love that.
And in the next set of verses, Śaṅkara offers some practical guidance on how we can cultivate this state of detachment and move towards liberation.
Okay.
He doesn't just leave us hanging with these lofty ideals, you know?
Right.
He provides concrete tools and practices that we can use to purify our minds and connect with our true selves.
What are they?
So in verses 20 through 27, he highlights the importance of studying scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita
Okay.
to gain wisdom and understanding. He encourages engaging in devotional practices like chanting prayer and rituals to cultivate love and surrender.
Okay.
He also stresses the importance of seeking the company of wise individuals,
Okay.
people who can guide us on our spiritual journey and help us see things more clearly.
Good advice.
Yeah. And he reminds us that true fulfillment doesn't come from accumulating wealth, but from sharing it and serving others through acts of charity.
It's about giving back.
Exactly. It's about giving back. And all of these practices are about clearing away the mental clutter,
Yeah.
the attachments and desires that keep us trapped in suffering. They're about purifying our minds and hearts so that we can experience the peace and joy that reside within.
So once we've laid this groundwork,
Yeah.
then we can begin to engage in the most profound practice of all self-inquiry.
Yes, and in verses 23 through 26,
Okay.
Śaṅkara encourages us to ask ourselves some fundamental questions.
What are they?
Like, who are you? Who am I? From where did I come? Who is my mother? Who is my father?
Those sound like simple questions.
They do, but they're designed to shake us out of our complacency,
Okay.
to make us question everything we think we know about ourselves and the world around us.
I see.
These questions, when contemplated deeply,
Yeah.
they can lead to a profound shift in consciousness.
Yeah.
They can help us break free from this illusion of separateness and experience the oneness of all existence.
Okay.
They can lead us to the realization that we are not just these limited individual selves,
Right.
but something much greater, something infinite and eternal.
This is a journey of self-discovery
It is.
that can be both challenging and exhilarating.
It can.
But it's a journey worth taking because it leads us to the ultimate goal:
Freedom.
liberation from suffering and the realization of our true nature.
Exactly. And in the final set of verses, Śaṅkara brings us back to the importance of discipline and surrender
Okay.
in this spiritual journey. He reminds us that the path to liberation, it's not always easy.
Right.
It requires effort, dedication, and a willingness to let go of our attachments.
We've covered so much in our exploration of Bhaja Govindam,
Yeah.
talking about, the urgency of seeking Govinda,
Right.
the importance of detaching from worldly pursuits, the power of self-inquiry, and the transformative potential of spiritual practices.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has.
And as we approach the final verses, Śaṅkara offers some really powerful reminders about the importance of discipline and surrender on this path to liberation.
Okay.
So in verses 28 through 31, he actually outlines 5 key practices that can help us cultivate self-control, discipline, and ultimately a sense of surrender to something greater than ourselves.
So he's not just giving us this like theoretical framework.
Right.
He's giving us practical tools that we can use to transform our lives.
He's saying, okay, now you understand the principles. Here's how you actually put them into practice.
I like that.
And the first practice he mentions is pranayama,
Okay.
the control of vital energy through breath work.
Now this might sound kind of esoteric, but it's actually a very simple and accessible practice.
It is.
By
Good.
consciously regulating our breath, we can calm the mind, reduce stress, and increase our energy levels.
It's like hitting the reset button on our nervous system.
Exactly. And from there, we move to pratyahara, the withdrawal of the senses.
Yes.
Now, this doesn't mean we have to, like, live in a sensory deprivation tank or something.
Yeah, not at all.
But it's about learning to control our senses rather than letting them control us.
Exactly.
I mean, in today's world, we're constantly bombarded with stimulation.
Constantly.
Social media, advertising, news, entertainment.
It's so easy to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, and just disconnected from ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So by consciously choosing to limit our exposure to these distractions, we can create space for inner peace and clarity. It's about, becoming more mindful of how we're spending our time and energy and making choices that support our well-being.
Right.
Rather than depleting us.
Exactly.
Okay, so then Śaṅkara introduces the practice of nitya, anitya, viveka, vikara.
Yes.
The discrimination between the eternal and the impermanent.
It's a mouthful.
It is. It's a mouthful. But this is all about learning to see things as they truly are. To recognize that everything in the material world is constantly changing and ultimately fleeting.
Right.
So it's about shifting our focus from those temporary things to the eternal, unchanging reality of our true nature.
It's about recognizing that true happiness and fulfillment don't come from, external possessions or achievements, but from connecting with that deeper spiritual dimension within ourselves.
And that leads us to the practice of japa, the repetition of sacred mantras.
Yes.
Mantras are powerful sound vibrations that can help us quiet the mind, focus our attention, and connect with the divine.
They're like a sonic bridge between our individual consciousness and the universal consciousness.
I like that. And finally, we have samadhi, meditative absorption.
Yes.
This is kind of like the culmination of all the previous practices, a state of deep concentration and inner peace where the mind becomes still and we experience a profound sense of connection with our true nature.
It's like transcending the limitations of our individual ego and merging with the infinite.
A state of pure bliss and liberation.
It is, and it's available to anyone who's willing to put in the effort to cultivate these practices.
Śaṅkara isn't just offering us a set of rules to follow.
No.
He's giving us like a roadmap to freedom.
A path to awakening to our true potential.
Exactly. And as we wrap up our deep dive into Bhaja Govindam, I'm struck by the timeless wisdom and practical relevance of these teachings. It's a message that's as important today as it was centuries ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially in a world that's increasingly chaotic and demanding.
Yes.
These practices offer a way to find peace, meaning, and purpose.
I agree.
It reminds us that true happiness and freedom are not external pursuits, but inner states of being. They invite us to turn inward, to cultivate self-awareness, to connect with our true nature, and to live in alignment with our highest values.
Bhaja Govindam is more than just a beautiful poem or a philosophical treatise. It's a call to action.
Yeah.
An invitation to awaken from the slumber of illusion and embark on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual transformation.
It's a reminder that we are not just these limited individual selves, but expressions of the divine capable of experiencing infinite joy, peace, and love.
And it's a guidebook for that journey, offering practical tools and timeless wisdom to help us navigate the challenges of life and realize our full potential.
So as we conclude our deep dive, we encourage you to reflect on these teachings and consider how you can incorporate them into your own life.
Yeah.
What steps can you take today to cultivate more inner peace, clarity, and joy?
How can you live more in alignment with your true nature and purpose?
The path to liberation is open to all of us.
It is.
And the journey begins with a single step.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of Bhaja Govindam.
It's been a pleasure.
May these insights inspire you on your own journey of self-discovery and spiritual awakening.